Welcome to another E6-4 showcase. E6-4 is a computer software designed to help fathers obey God's command in Ephesians 6:4, to bring up their children in the training and instruction of the Lord. And now, let's watch one of the instructional films that come with the E6-4 software library, which you can purchase from the online store at E6-4.com.
You're watching Captain Bret's Christian Movie Show.
In Isaiah chapter 49 and verse 15, God asked this question: can a mother forget the baby at her breast and have no compassion on the child she has borne? Do you remember the feeling that came over you the first time you held your little baby boy or girl? Do you remember how determined you were to give that child the very best of everything? Every mother wants the best for her children. Unfortunately, however, we live in a culture where we are all expected to depend on experts to help us with the nurturing and training of our children. These experts, the government-certified psychologists, the government-certified public school educators, the government-certified pediatricians, what they all have in common is that they are all required to be indoctrinated in our American university system in order to get their government certification. Each of these experts has received several years of training in an educational system whose foundation is dogmatically religious. But the religion is not Christianity, but rather secular humanism and its blind faith in evolution. The result of this sad situation is that we have an entire generation of young mothers, many of whom are sincere Christians, who are nurturing and training their children in a completely unbiblical manner. Titus chapter 2 tells us to teach the older women to be reverent in the way they live, not to be slanderers or addicted to much wine, but to teach what is good. Then they can train the younger women to love their husbands and children, to be self-controlled and pure, to be busy at home, to be kind, and to be subject to their husbands, so that no one will malign the Word of God. Far from being silent about the issue, the Bible gives us clear directions concerning how our young women are to learn to be good wives and mothers. God commands the church to make teachers out of their older women, the women who have demonstrated their knowledge and skills in the area of being a good wife and mother by the results they have achieved. The church is to facilitate these women training the younger women. But here in America, many churches have totally ignored this biblical command, and the results have been disastrous. Think about it like this. Let's say you're getting ready to plant a garden. Both of your neighbors have gardens, and so you decide to get some advice from one of them and let them help you learn how to cultivate your new garden. So, you walk over to the garden of your neighbor on the left. In his garden, you see a haphazard collection of poor-looking plants, with weeds growing up and choking out many of them. Wild animals have come in and eaten many of the plants. The leaves appear diseased. Insects have eaten large portions of many of the plants, and most of the fruit is withered and sickly in appearance. You pull a piece of fruit and bite into it, only to spit it out because it's bitter to the taste. So, you cross your backyard and enter the garden of your neighbor on the right. First of all, you must open the gate because the garden is securely fenced from predators. As you enter, you see neat, orderly rows of healthy, well-watered plants. The weeds have been carefully pulled out, and there are insect-capturing devices placed in strategic locations. The plump fruit has a rich, healthy color, and as you pluck a piece and bite into it, the delicious taste causes you to break out into a pleasant smile as the juice just runs down your chin. So, you make your choice. You leave this lush garden You go back across your yard to the neighbor on your left, and you ask him to teach you how to cultivate your new garden. What, you ask? Are you nuts? Who in his right mind would do a foolish thing like that? How about the majority of American parents? The results of several decades of parents following the advice of government-certified experts is obvious. Rampant obesity, promiscuity and disease among teenagers, teen pregnancies, homosexuality, almost universal disrespect of parents, the use of mind-altering drugs by our kids, most of them administered by their own parents in the form of Ritalin or similar drugs. Folks, the humanist garden is a dried-up weed patch, and yet we continue to bow down to the pagan altars of our universities and government regulatory agencies. But you know what? As a wife and mother, you don't have to follow the crowd. You can choose to obey God's Word and choose to be discipled by older, godly women who have raised fruitful gardens. Women whose children and the children of the other women they have taught and discipled are proof of the effectiveness of their teachings. My wife, Jacqueline, is one such godly woman with a fruitful garden. She has devoted her life to serving her husband and her children, and the results have been very pleasant indeed. I'm going to ask her to introduce this next film, which is a video tool to help the younger mothers to learn from the older. And now, here's my lovely wife, Jacqueline.
I first met Dr. Denmark in 1984. I was a young mother with an infant baby boy. I had been feeding him on demand as I had been taught. I was taught that I could be free from schedules. They were created for people who fed their babies with bottles, and since I was going to nurse the baby, I could just let the baby tell me when he needed to eat. And he seemed to thrive well enough for several months. He was a chubby, happy little baby, beautiful. He was the joy of our lives. But as he approached a year of age, I found that he was not continuing to grow as fast as he should, and he was beginning to have a few health problems. So we sought out the best medical care that we could get. Even though we had no health insurance, we were always able to pay the medical bills. And living up there on the north side of Atlanta, we ended up at Scottish Rite Hospital, the best children's hospital in the southeast, perhaps in the whole country. And the doctors did what they could for him and treated his symptoms, but they could not solve his problems. Until one day, my sister called me up and said, "I'm coming to take you to see Dr. Denmark." Well, I knew of this lady because my grandmother had taken my mother, when she was just an infant, to Dr. Denmark. And Dr. Denmark had been no spring chicken then. Dr. Denmark was in her late 80s at the time. And I soon found out that I literally lived down the street from Dr. Denmark, only about a mile and a half. Dr. Denmark charged me $8 for that visit, but she spent about an hour and a half teaching me how to feed this little boy, and his health problems dissipated immediately. I took him home, fed him exactly the way she told me to do, and he was a healthy little boy from that day on. Within just a few days, he had gained the weight, which seemed to be missing off of his tiny frame, and he has been a healthy little boy ever since. He's behind the camera now, grinning at me, a healthy young man. I'm very proud of him. In the years that followed, I gave birth to 3 little girls in 3 years' time. And as soon as that 3rd little girl was born, we packed up and moved to a foreign place, away from family, friends, and everything I'd ever known. I couldn't speak more than a handful of words in Spanish, and certainly could not cope in the foreign place where we were at. But I had 3 baby girls to tend to, as well as my handsome little boy, who was now just as healthy as a horse. And if it had not been for Dr. Denmark's excellent advice, putting me on the right road, I wondered just how bad the health of my young children could have been during those years that followed. But instead, it was quite easy to have 3 little baby girls in the house, and they were just healthy as could be. I fed them on a schedule and came to love the method that Dr. Denmark had taught me. Dr. Denmark always told me that the baby did not know what he needed, and that I had to be the smart mother who made a plan and cared for the baby and met his needs in a proper fashion. At that first visit with Dr. Denmark, she drew me a diagram of the baby's stomach and showed me that if I put fresh milk on top of undigested milk, even if it was my good milk that my body provided for my infant, that my baby would have digestive problems, that things would not go well. And that was a revelation to me. I simply was unable to figure that out on my own. And I had been nursing my baby for long periods of time and picking him back up to nurse him whenever he cried. But I was so grateful to learn that I, as the mother, was smarter than my baby, and I did know now what to do, and I had a good plan, and I could have a happy home. My husband's needs could be met because I could plan when I was going to prepare and serve his meals and meet his various different needs, rather than simply being at the beck and call of an infant who did not know what he needed and when. This video, The Well-Fed, Well-Rested Baby, will teach you the things that Dr. Denmark spent so many patient hours teaching me, Wendy and Tammy, and many other mothers like us, how to care for your infant, how to have a happy baby, a happy home, a happy husband. Very important things here. I think you'll enjoy it.
Don't you just love the change of the seasons? I think my favorite time of year is the fall, with the crisp colored leaves, the cool mornings, and that first cup of hot cocoa in front of a warm fire. Well, for a woman, one of the first major seasons of change in her life is when she becomes a mother. She gets that nursery ready, gets that first maternity outfit, feels that miraculous first movement of the baby within her, and waits for the day of the birth. For some, this transition goes very smoothly, but for others, it can be very traumatic. So whether this is your first baby, you're the mother of many, or maybe you're a single mom, we here at Mother to Mother want to provide training and encouragement to make this season of motherhood one of confidence and blessing. I'm Wendy Eccles, and I'll be your host. Welcome to Mother to Mother. Well, I am really excited about this particular session at Mother to Mother. We are going to be highlighting a dear friend of mine and a wonderful mother. She's also a grandmother and a great-grandmother, and just happens to be one of the oldest and longest practicing pediatricians in the United States, Dr. Layla Daughtry Denmark. She was born in 1898 and just finished practicing in the year 2004 at the age of 104. At this session, we are going to be highlighting the first few chapters of her book, Every Child Should Have a Chance. These few chapters have very specific distinctives about newborn care, and I think you'll find these very helpful. Well, Tammy and I want to tell you how we personally met Dr. Denmark, because meeting her has really changed our lives and changed everything we do about mothering. And we owe a lot to her, and so we want to really highlight a lot of the things that we learned from her and pass on to you. But I met her back in 1989. I was expecting my first baby, and I was very excited. And I don't know how it is with you girls, but once I got pregnant, I started noticing every other pregnant woman that walked around. And I also began to notice babies and how other babies acted. And I began to see a pattern with some of the mothers that I went to church with of children that were doing really well. They were good eaters, they were good sleepers, they just looked like the most content little happy things. And so I began to ask a lot of questions, how they got that to happen. And the common thread among all that was the word Dr. Denmark. Mm-hmm. And they also said, she's very old, you better go see her fast. I think she was 89 at the time, and I thought, she is going to die before I even get up there to visit her. So I called her on her day off, which was Thursday, and went up there, and she spent hours with me instructing me on what to do when that baby was born, because I was 7 months pregnant at the time. And she gave me her book, Every Child Should Have a Chance, and she began to coach me through specifics on how to have a successful experience with my baby. And little did I know that I was going to go on and have 7 children in 11 years, and how much I was really going to need that advice, because it's been wonderful. And so Tammy, when did you meet Dr. Denmark?
Well, I met Dr. Denmark in 1996. We had gone through a period of infertility, and at last there was a baby, and I was so thankful at the prospect of becoming a mother. Well, I read everything that I could get my hands on because I just wanted to be that good mother that I've dreamed of being, and I found that there was a lot of conflicting information out there about different ways to do it just right. But the baby came, and quickly we went from this exciting time of getting to be a new mother with a new baby to this time of no sleep, baby crying all the time. And I was trying everything and nothing was working. Feeding every 2 hours and up every night and on for weeks and weeks. And that just got very tiring and trying very fast. And a friend, Elaine Strickland, came over to visit our new baby to see her, and we were trying to talk while I'm bouncing this screaming baby, and she said, "Do you have this baby on a schedule?" And I laughed and said, "Well, she has me on a schedule. She cries and I jump and she cries, and I feed her and she cries, and I change her." I'd never heard of having a baby on a schedule. And so she quickly called Dr. Denmark on the phone and got some information for me and got me headed down the right path. And Macy at that time was 6 weeks old and was still crying all night, and within 4 nights on the Dr. Denmark schedule, she was sleeping all night.
Isn't that great?
And a good night's rest will sure make a believer out of you.
That's right. And so it's amazing how quickly that things settle down when the routine is put into practice. So when my little Emily was born on Christmas Day of 1988, things began to happen very smoothly, very quickly. I was able to start the schedule in the hospital and continue on as I got home, and she was sleeping through the night in just a few nights, and it was wonderful. And I had a great time with my infant those first 6 months. And when we happened to be in Colorado with Campus Crusade for Christ that next summer, when my first baby was just 6 months old, and I had women coming up to me and asking me, "How come you're having such a great experience with your baby? She seems to eat well, sleep well," and they were going crazy. And so these missionary moms in this training session over the summer asked me if I would teach them what I know. And so I called Dr. Denmark, and she coached me through the outline of that first class I ever taught back that summer. And she mailed me 40 books, and I ended up selling out every book I had, doing 2 sessions, and it was just that good advice. People were so hungry for it. And I think as we see, we're giving these little babies this new life, and so often what goes from an excitement for the baby to chaos. And Dr. Denmark's distinctives change all that and really bring a lot of peace and settling to the home. And so before we get started any further, I want to show you a little biographical video on the life of Dr. Denmark.
Beautiful flower garden, and we'd take flowers to the teacher, and when the day was finished, the teacher would throw the flowers out. Well, I would wait till the teacher disappeared, and I'd go pick up the flowers, take them back home, cut the stems off, put them in water, to see them lift their heads again, to see life come back again. And yet my mother had worlds of flowers, but I couldn't stand to see those flowers die. So that's been my philosophy all life. We should never take life. Daughtry Denmark. I'm 89 years old. I'm a pediatrician for 60 years. I was born in Bullock County, South Georgia, on a big farm. And my father was a very fine farmer. We had all kinds of animals on the farm. If a little chicken or something got hurt, I would always be fixing them up. When I was 6 years old, they built a railroad through my father's farm, and we had lots of cattle, and the little calf must have been sleeping on the railroad track, and they cut the calf's tail off, almost one section of the bone, of the backbone. My father brought the little calf in, and he said we'd have to put the little calf to death, and I said, "Oh no, let me have that little calf." So I made me up some salve. I used some octagon soap, sugar, iodoform, a little turpentine, fixed me up a nice concoction, and every day I'd go out there and work on this little calf. And you know, that little calf healed, I got well. It was the funniest looking cow you've ever seen in your life. Actually, there was nothing there that ever resembled the tail, and grew into the biggest cow. And when he got grown, of course, those days money was money, and my father sold him for $15. So that type thing I was always interested in, bringing life back. If you read the history of medicine, women have been doctors all the time. But as far as this part of the country, women or ladies, they didn't go out in the public to make a living, you know. When I applied, they didn't even answer my application. And I decided to go over to medical school and talk to them about it. And I got over there and they said they had 52 boys and they couldn't take anybody else. And I said, well, you know, I'd love to go now if you can work it out. And they said, well, you can wait till next year and apply and maybe we can get it in. I said, no, I'd love to go this year. And I was the only girl in the class, 52 boys.
Well, you can certainly see after watching Dr. Denmark's bio why she would title her book, Every Child Should Have a Chance. Because she believed that every mother that came in her office had an opportunity to give that child in her arms a chance at a better life. You know, we all have different and varied backgrounds. Some of us had great childhoods, some of us did not. But when that baby is placed in our arms, we have a new beginning. We have an opportunity to give that child a chance. And so that was her life message, to equip every single one. And you know, the wonderful thing about it is when you went to see Dr. Denmark in her office, she didn't try to get you in and out in 15 minutes. There were times where she would spend an hour or an hour and a half with me in the office. And if you went to her for the first time on that first visit, which a lot of what we're teaching you in this particular session is exactly what you would get in that first office visit with her. She would show you how to bathe the baby, how to hold the baby, when to feed the baby, how to feed the baby, every particular detail, and she would act like you were the only person in her waiting room. And she would always take a newborn in. If you walked in the door and you had a brand new baby in your arms, no matter if 20 people were in her office, she always took the newborn next, because she felt like they needed to get home, back into their safe environment away from sick people. So it was a real treasure. When you went to one of her appointments, you went home trained. You knew what to do with that baby, and so that's really what we want to pass on today.
The film you just watched is one of the hundreds of films that are a part of the E6-4 Educational Library. E6-4 is a computerized curriculum that combines video instruction, text-based instruction, music, computerized testing, competitions, games, and more to create a unique tool for learning. Just a few of the ways that E6-4 is being used around the world include a homeschool curriculum for parents who want to give their children a strong biblical worldview education, a Christian school curriculum for learning to read, math, science, history, and Bible studies, a family integrated Sunday school curriculum for churches that are moving towards a more biblical family integrated model, a tool for fathers to do family worship in their homes, and a tool for church leaders to train their men to be strong spiritual leaders in their homes. The E6-4 library is currently over 35 gigabytes of instructional material and can be purchased on a handy flash drive by going to the website at E6-4.com. Give us a call if you would like for someone to come to your church, homeschool group, business, or other organization to do a live demonstration of the software. If you are a strong supporter of Christian education, then you may want to consider becoming an E6-4 distributor. We can provide you with the tools and training to start your own home business as an education consultant. Ephesians 6:4 commands fathers to bring their children up in the training and instruction of the Lord. For fathers who want to obey this command, there's no better tool than E6-4.
Are you looking for a family integrated church that follows the regulations for worship found in 1 Corinthians? Then come and worship with the fellowship of the Father. We don't have programs that divide families. Rather, families worship together, and our elders make themselves available to disciple men in how to become strong spiritual leaders in their homes. We don't spend our tithes money on big mortgages or big salaries, Instead, we worship in homes, and our elders are all bivocational. To read our fundamentals of fellowship or other information, visit our website at fellowshipofthefather.org. To visit us for Sunday worship or weekday breakfast and Bible study, give us a call at 678-570-2195.
Here's another E6-4 snapshot from the Homeschool channel with Captain Bret of the Homeschool Advantage.
1 Peter chapter 4 tells us to offer hospitality to one another without grumbling. Hospitality has become a lost art in America, and yet it is both commanded in Scripture and is a key element in each of the biblical lists of qualifications for a church elder. In the E6-4 lesson titled Wisdom's Gate, Being Salt and Light Families, Israel Lane demonstrates that the most important way children can be salt and light in their communities is by helping their parents offer hospitality in their home. To learn more, watch the E6-4 video titled Wisdom's Gate, Being Salt and Light Families.
Watch E6-4 lesson videos online at thehomeschoolchannel.tv.
Let's watch some excerpts from one of the instructional films that come with the E6-4 software library, which you can purchase from the online store at E6-4.com.
Let's learn about counting coins. This is a penny. A penny is 1 cent. This is a nickel. A nickel is 5 cents. This is a dime. A dime is 10 cents. This is a quarter. A quarter is 25 cents. This is a dollar. A dollar is 100 cents. How many pennies does it take to make a dollar? A penny is 1 cent, which is 1/100th of a dollar. So it takes 100 pennies to make a dollar. How many nickels does it take to make a dollar? A nickel is 5 cents. A dollar is 100 cents. 100 divided by 5 is 20. So it takes 20 nickels to make a dollar. Let's count the nickels to $1. 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40, 45, 50, 55, 60, 65, 70, 75, 80, 85, 90, 95, $1. How many dimes does it take to make a dollar? A dime is 10 cents. A dollar is 100 cents. 100 divided by 10 is 10. So it takes 10 dimes to make a dollar. Let's count the dimes to $1. 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, $1. How many quarters does it take to make a dollar? A quarter is 25 cents. A dollar is 100 cents. 100 divided by 25 is 4. So it takes 4 quarters to make a dollar. Let's count the quarters to $1. 25, 50, 75, $1. A quarter is 1/4 of a dollar. Another name for 1/4 is a quarter.